Hi guys! Surprise! Sorry, I wasn't able to use the link that I created last week, probably because we surpassed the deadline dramatically. I think so. My system didn't see the link, so sorry for this little tiny problem. But welcome to the last lecture, and this really is the last lecture. It's a bittersweet moment. Hello, Julia. It's a bittersweet moment because we are all happy that we finished a huge amount of effort. You listening to this lecture and me delivering this lecture, I don't know which one is more difficult. And so congratulations to you also that you were here present all the time. And hello, Martina. But at the same time, I will be really missing you. I will be really missing you. So, but still, we still have the exams ahead. So I know that the situation will be much more tense for you than for me for the upcoming 3 weeks. 3 weeks, I think. If you have any problems with the exams, with assigning yourself to some specific date, just let me know, and I will try to fix it with the guys who are working in our office. So today we'll talk about mind, understanding mind. So the essence of human evolution, as some people term it, because this is particularly. It seems particularly difficult. Hello, Martina. Hello, both Martinas. One Anna, one Julia, two Julias, one Carolina. Hi. Before the lecture, will you say something about the exam? For example, date, formulae, etc. I think I said it earlier. So the dates are in the system. If you don't know, then you have a problem because you need to assign your name to this to a specific term. I don't know which one. 22nd and 29th or something like that. I think these exams are on Monday. So they are 22 and 29th of June. So just look in the USOS system. Dates in USOS are correct. Why don't you think that they are correct? Is there anything wrong with the dates in the USO system? So the exam will be quiz A, B, C, D, as in the syllabus. So there will be about 20, perhaps 30 questions. One answer is correct, the others are not correct. The questions will be based on the lecture. So if you take notes from the lecture and you know what we are talking about, then you will pass it with flying colors, as people say it in English. What else? Any other questions about the exam? Just nothing particularly strange. It will be online, of course, so we will use Microsoft Forms or Moodle, and you will get a link, I think, or an invitation from me. I'm not sure now, but I will let you know about the technical aspect of this exam. And no, it will be in Microsoft. It seems like you know nothing about the exams. I thought that students were informed what is it going to be like. What limits for students on the one date are changeable? I think they are, and I know that there are some limits there, but if you want some date, I have no problems with you attending one date, everyone, because there are so few of you here. So it's not a problem for me if you want to take it all of you at the same time. And so it will be Microsoft Forms or Moodle. I'm not quite sure yet, but it does not matter much. You still should have access to Microsoft Forms and the whole system. And one important thing is, yes, that's in English. Guys, you seem to know nothing about the exam. I thought, as far as we're talking about mind reading, that you know everything about this. So I'm lousy. I'm a lousy mind reader. I thought that, you know, it's obvious for you that we have a test, ABCD. I think perhaps I missed this information at the first lecture. Sorry if I did, but as in the syllabus, we have a test. So we have like 20, 30 questions, ABCD, one answer is correct. Each question is based on what we presented during these lectures. We use Microsoft Forms or Moodle. One important thing is that you need to have a camera so I can see your face and I can read your mind and know whether you are cheating or not, because cheating is not allowed. Cheating is not allowed here. Everything will be recorded, will be analyzed, and if you have any suspicion that you were cheating, you will just need to retake the test, I think. So it's not a good idea for you to cheat. So I will record each person, and then I will analyze it and say, okay, I can see that she's cheating here. And then I say, okay, she needs to take it again. If there is no place for the date I want to write an exam, what should I do? Write to you or click any date in USOS? You should write to me, and I will write to the person, Marlena Janasik, who will assign you to a date. If there are limits, if the limits are full, I think that for the first date the limits are full. Okay. Hello, Daria. What about your clients? Yeah, sorry for the limit of 5 people. This is strange. This is really. I was really surprised because Martina wrote to me today. Martina, the other Martina, that there is this limit. I thought that the limits are if the groups are larger. I think it's automatically. Hello, by the way, Julia. I think. There might be a possibility, but if you want to take an oral test, then we can fix any other date, I think. But I must consult it with Błażej Smykowski whether I can make an other form. I think you need to write a letter explaining why you cannot take any other date and give some rationale for this. And if you cannot attend one or the other, then we might consider whether it's possible to make an oral test. So you will get like two or 3 questions, and you will need to answer. Okay, so never mind. So now you immediately were able to get. Why don't you want oral tests, guys? You need to use mind reading. If you know that someone is a kind and generous person like me, then you really should take oral tests, because it's much more subjective by definition. If you happen to provide wrong answers in a test, I cannot help you in any way, even if I'm a kind person. We are scared of them. Don't be scared of oral tests. Okay, so if these are all questions you have, you hate oral tests because you have so few of them, I think. I cried on my first because I was so stressed. This is why you should take them. Guys, this is why you should take them. If it was so much upsetting for you, then you should take it. You should take it just to adjust to it, to habituate, and to be, more capable of passing all these kinds of oral tests that will happen in the future to you. So you are much better adjusted. You should really take them. So, is it everything that you wish to ask me about during the first lecture, and you waited until the last, with me thinking that you were informed about this earlier. If not, that we will continue talking about reading, mind reading. We have a wonderful number of viewers today. Thank you. So it's great, because the last lecture was a bit upsetting. I appreciate even one person, even if there were no, but I think there were two persons at the end of the lecture, but even those two were not listening. So I just started to talk to myself, because I saw that you were not responding. But still, it was kind to see that you at least didn't turn your computer off. So it's crazy if there are only 10, I think 12 persons assigned to this lecture at all. So it was a strange experience, but it's just the form that this lecture provides. Everything can be recorded, can be recorded, and you can listen to it later. And you do, because I can see the statistics, and I can see that, oh my God, someone was watching this lecture again. So I can see that you have been preparing to the exams, which is great. So let's talk about mind reading, essence of human evolution. This is something what other species probably can't do, and we can do it perfectly. We can do perfectly. We can read in other people's mind. This is so fantastic. We look at the person, for instance, this girl, and we know what she's thinking. What she's thinking. Just tell me, what is she thinking about? You know it. Just please give me some answers in the communicator. What's on her mind? What's she thinking about? What she's feeling? You know it. Just type it. So obvious. Just one glance. It's like perception. We see and we know. So what's on her mind? Tell me, guys. I'm really curious whether you have the same opinion, or there is there will be some discrepancy in your opinions. That would be, how dare you? How do you know there's someone else there? You probably know this picture. How dare you? So, wow. So you are even able to, looking at this picture, you are even able to read in her mind, in her body, that there is another person there. This is surprising. This is striking. So you know that this is a social look, right? She's not looking at the sign, for instance, that says, we have a huge sale, 80% sale. What the heck? So Daria is more neutral about this. So the first two comments were, how dare you? What did you say? So you suggested that there was another person there, which is extremely elaborate, I think. Extremely elaborate interpretation. So you interpret that there is another person, and the other person did something wrong to her. Daria says it. Probably it's just surprise. What the heck? Just negative surprise, I imagine. Okay. So we have this guy. What is he thinking about? What is he thinking about? Okay, what is this guy thinking about? Can you read his mind? What's in his mind now? Are you able to get to the essence of human evolution? Do you have this ability of mind reading? What is this guy thinking about? Just write. I wouldn't like you to guess exactly, but just write what you think. What is the first thought that comes to your mind when you see a guy looking like this? How do you know this? I didn't ask you the first question, and regarding the first person, but why do you think this person has something on his mind? Whoa, that's awesome, says Daria. Whoa, that's awesome. It's like, right? So you even know the melody, the melody his whistling. Whoa, that's awesome. Anything else? Anything else? Whoa, that's awesome. Any other? Oh my God, can I see the a word here? Look at that. Look at that. I think your comment was censored because I saw it on my screen, but I didn't saw it in the chat. So I think your comment regarding the rear of a person was. So you interpreted there that there is some sexual context in his in his mind. Another very far-reaching interpretation, because this is what he was looking at. What is this guy thinking? What is this guy thinking? How do you know? What can you say? What is this guy thinking? Do you have something? Do you have some automatic interpretation? What might be it in his mind? Do you think that he knows, that you know what he's thinking about? Are you good mind readers? He looks like a friend of mine. I have a friend who looks very similar to this guy. So, you know what is he thinking about? No idea? Guys, no idea? Are you still there? You don't like this game? Please don't look at me. I think he is in the state of flow, so not really thinking at the moment. That's interesting. I'm not quite certain whether you don't think about anything when you're in the state of flow. I think in the state of flow you are focused on the task, on the activity. So and the activity. So interesting. Okay, but still, I think you have. Carolina, guys, people are bothering me with some phone calls. So, but still, you weren't hesitant. You weren't. Now when you look at her face, and you know that that the guy was looking at this guy, you might have a little bit different idea what she's thinking about now, right? What she's thinking about now. So, do you have this impression? Guys, what's going on with you? Stop calling me. So I will switch my phone off. Has it changed? You remember how we watched the perceptual Necker's cube, and your brain gave you different interpretations once a while. That's what I meant. Haha. Okay. So, but now when you look at her, right? Do you have this impression that now you have a different interpretation of her mindset? In the first case, when you suspected that there is some that there might be some third person who might be a woman, the guy's looking at, the interpretation might be different. In this case, she's much more. It's a little bit different. What is she thinking about? Okay, what is she thinking about? This is interesting. What is she thinking about? Do you have what's your idea about this? What is she thinking about? Can you guess? Do you see it? Do you know it? Because guessing is a little bit different, because we can guess, but do you hear it? Do you see it? Do you feel it? This is what mind reading is about also. You have this immediate perceptual-like interpretation of another person. We don't need to think. We don't need to think too much to know what's on her mind. So, and now when we combine this, we get all sorts of interpretations, I think. So, but two things. Oh, So now when we mixed all those three scenarios, I think we really can doubt whether now when we look at her, does she look ignored? Like, come on, look at me. You're with me here. Come on, we're going. Why are you standing here? So she's feeling ignored, or she's feeling jealous, perhaps, like in the situation when there is a second woman in the context, or just confused. What are you doing? Hey, what are you doing? So it shows that we are certainly mind readers, so we are able to read other people's mind. But the accuracy of this is a little bit questionable, but we do it. And in most cases, I think we are quite skillful at this. So mind perception or mind reading, as we can term it, is that we are able to know what other people are thinking, feeling, or intending right now. And it's very important, and I said it's an essence of human evolution, because it not only because it's the last achievement, but it's a very serious achievement, because it's not only that we look at other people and try to predict, or we do predict, whether we want it or not, what they're thinking about, what they're feeling, what they're intending now, just for the sake of enjoying that we understand other people better. But the idea is that once we know what's the other people's mindset, we are able to predict the future. We are able to predict the future better. So it no wonder promotes survival and better understanding of social situations. If we know what he's thinking about or she's thinking about now, we know what happened, we know better what is going on, and we are able to predict future. No wonder that we cannot read one another's minds. We, from a philosophical perspective, we cannot even be certain that other individuals have mind. Okay? We cannot be certain of this. Perhaps, from the epistemological perspective, perhaps we are the only one who have minds. And we are living, for instance, some guys are serious about this, that we are living in a simulation where other people can be just simulated. So they have behavior, and their behavior is very similar to our behavior, and it makes us expect that they also have their minds if their behavior is similar to ours, because we know that our behavior is driven by our mind to a large extent. So we treat others as there was some unseen and unseeable, so epistemologically unseeable mental state, because we really don't know what's a mental state, right? And we cannot. This is really very, very difficult to imagine, because there are some things that we know that do exist, but we cannot imagine this. We cannot imagine this. For instance, you can imagine and you can understand an object that has 4 physical dimensions. No problem. We can imagine this. And in mathematics, you can imagine this. You can make all sorts of operations on an object that has 4 dimensions. And we know that such objects can exist. No problem. We can imagine that. In a very similar way, we can imagine others' people perception, others' people mind, and mental states. Although we will probably never see them, because we will not find them in the brain. We can cut out, we can split the head by 2, open the skull, search in the brain, and we will never find a perception there. It's not a part of a physical world. I know it sounds metaphysical, but I don't want to suggest any form of religion here. But this is something that we can imagine that there is, because we can see and perceive and feel our mental states. but we cannot do it regarding other people. It's very interesting. And some guys even in psychology joke that we know much more about subconsciousness or unconsciousness than about consciousness. We take consciousness as something obvious, but it's not. It's not. Unconsciousness seems a much easier concept to understand, because by definition, this is something that we cannot observe and other people cannot observe. So, there is no epistemological paradox here. That we know that it exists, but we cannot see it in any other place than our own mind. So it's very tricky. And if you want to know what looks a cube that has 4 dimensions, it's called tesseract. You can read about this. It's inspiring that we can imagine this, and we know that if it existed, it would exist like this. What we can see and we can fully understand is what the shadow of a tesseract or a 4-dimensional cube looks like. The shadow of a 4-dimensional cube looks like a 3-dimensional cube. That's very, very interesting. Looks exactly like this. So, but it's not. We are not talking about mathematics here or philosophy, but still, it helps us to understand some shortcomings of psychology. So we do it. We read minds. We use some inferential acts, right? Inferential acts. So we make a lot of. We need to perform certain reasoning to get to the right mind perception, and we ascribe, right? We ascribe rather than perceive. So we think that something belongs to this person. We think that a mental state like this belongs to this person. We ascribe it to this person. It's not only something that we psychologists are interested in, but it's a field for philosophers, neuroscientists, primatologists also, because as I said, it's an essence of human evolution. So when it starts, that animals are able to predict that other animals are intending something, right? Are intending something. How we do it, how well we can do it, and how it impacts our social life. So the starting point, the starting point of this discussion should be something we call the naive realism. I think we touched upon this concept to some extent throughout the whole lecture, although I think we have never used the term naive realism, perhaps on the second lecture, I think, or the first lecture, the second also. So this is something that we should be really aware of. It's a phenomenon that shows that we are much more confident in what we think about the world, about other people, than it is in reality. So in most cases, we think that our perceptions are objective and unbiased. Our own perceptions, our own beliefs, our own worldview is objective and unbiased, right? This is a huge problem, and this is something we should really be aware of if we want to improve our social functioning. So the main assumption is that we can predict certain things around the world, and if we discuss long enough, we will all arrive at the same conclusions. So if others do not bear the same beliefs as we do, they are ignorant, irrational, and biased. So we can have a very we might build a very harmonious world. We might build a very harmonious social world once we are all equipped with the same knowledge and devote a substantial amount of energy to process this knowledge rationally. We would arrive at the same conclusions, which is a problem. So we think that our perceptions are objective. They tend to be objective. We know, we already talked about some problems that showed that there are some clear evidence that it's not like this. So if you are presented with the same stimuli, for instance, the same material, it's processed based on your other knowledge, your other beliefs. So if you wanted people to arrive at the same conclusions all the time, we should regress until their first assumptions that they have, perhaps that they made in the kindergarten. So it might be a very long and burdensome iterative process. Or the reversed hostile media effect, which makes us believe that certain things are objective, can be objective, and in fact they are biased. So we could call it reversed. This is one of the reasons why in mind reading we have something called the illusion of transparency. We have the illusion of transparency. So this is very interesting, and I think it's one of those effects that we really should be we really should think about, and we really should be aware of. If you are not already, right? Because I think that most people who have some psychological consciousness, and they think about psychology a little bit, they arrive at this conclusion quite early. And if you know that there's this illusion of transparency, it's good for you. If no, remember this. This is important. Phenomenon, a really important phenomenon, and you will not. It has two perspectives. In general, it means that due to the naive realism, so the idea that everyone thinks the same, everyone is very much the same in each situation, we have this tendency to think that other people know what's on our mind. Okay, because they have the information. They have all the available information around us. We tend to attribute very similar motivation to other people. I don't know whether you have this, whether you know, when I'm talking about this, whether you have, whether you are able to refer this phenomenon to such situations from your personal life. So imagine that you are taking an oral test, for instance. I think that one of the reasons why you hate passing oral tests, and who hates passing oral tests? Just write to me in the comment. Is it all of you? We have 11 viewers, are 11 persons who hate passing oral tests. One of the problems with passing oral tests is the illusion of transparency. So if you are not prepared perfectly during passing this exam, you think that the person who's watching at you knows exactly what you know, or what you don't know. Another thing, if you are delivering an answer to a question, you think that the other person is motivated and capable, in fact, to know how well you answered this question as precisely as you are. Okay? So in many cases, you know the answer, you know what should be the perfect answer to this question, or you imagine how far your answer is from the perfect answer. And when you start answering, you feel and you know that this answer isn't as perfect as it should be, you immediately think that your observer knows exactly the same thing, is motivated to know exactly the same thing. In most cases, the person is not that much motivated. You are much more motivated to monitor how much your answer fits the ideal answer than the other person, for whom this your oral exam is not that self-relevant as for you. The grade that you get is not that self-relevant for the observer than it is for you. Imagine, I think that the first situation in which I personally observed this effect was during singing contests, because, as you know, I can sing, and I do sing, perhaps too often. But when I was in my high school, I used to sing, and I used to perform on the stage, and I participated in contests, and I very often noticed that when I make a mistake while singing, for instance, I don't know what's the next phrase, I can just sing anything, and no one will notice that I made a mistake. I had a situation in which I had to sing solo in front of 100 heads of high schools from, well, perhaps not 150, 50 heads of high school from all over Poland, and I completely forgot 2 lines of a text, and then I just made them up. I was singing nonsense, like, and everyone will love each other, and we will be very happy, and we all be friends. It was completely different from the song, that from the original phrase. And my singing teacher, was so happy, and she complimented me so much for not standing there and thinking, oh my God, these guys will just be embarrassed because they know that I'm making these lyrics up. No, they were not able or motivated even to know that I'm just singing nonsense. And I also noticed many people who were just mixing their lyrics or the melody, and they immediately after this they were showing that, okay, I know it, that my voice isn't perfect, that the lyrics is mixed up. So as if they were absolutely certain that all the other people know this, and it's better if they admit to their failure that they continue. You get the idea? What I'm talking about? So, is Martyna here? Is Martyna Dziekan here? We also had. I had this observer's illusion effect yesterday when when you were delivering your presentation of your PhD thesis, right? Did you have this observer's? The illusion of transparency. Did you have, because I knew, and I think we knew, that this presentation is not that perfect as it might be. And I had this horrible expectations that everyone will know this once we start presenting. And in fact, they didn't ask for I think, 4 or 5 key problems with this project that we were aware of. But they were not aware of this because they were not able or motivated to get so much into this situation Were you surprised by the positive feedback that we received, Martina, or not? Do you have this illusion of transparency in social situations? I had a strong one. So what was it like from your perspective? And if Daria is here, Daria, you shouldn't be worried, because Daria will have her presentation next week, I think. You really shouldn't be so much worried about the presentation, that everyone will know what are the weaker parts of this project. They will not be aware of this. So this is very, very interesting. So we have this illusion of transparency. So we think that other people are much better at reading our minds than they are in reality. They are able, which is one thing, and that they are motivated to do it. This is very important. They are motivated to do it, right? In most cases, when you listen to someone singing, you really don't pay too much attention to this. You don't listen to the whole message of the lyrics. If it becomes ridiculous in some moment, you most probably will not be able to know about this. If you don't sing a line, no one will notice this as well in most cases, I think. So this is something that some interesting phenomenon, the illusion of transparency, that we should mention here. Okay, the other problem with mind reading is that actually in most cases we're not reading minds, right? We're not reading minds. So we think, right? We think that we read. Martina wasn't surprised by the positive feedback, but I saw many shortcomings in the presentation. I was afraid they were going to ask about this. Okay, so yeah, exactly. So because I think, yeah, I should think about my approach, focusing too much on the negative comments, possible negative comments, because as far as observers' illusions is concerned, this is very interesting. I didn't have the reverse. I think it might be related to optimism or pessimism. I wasn't aware of the other thing, that other people know the good sides of this project, because I think that I am also aware of serious, excellent points in this project, which are much more numerous than the shortcomings that can be easily ruled out in the future. But if I had a really strong and unbiased, let's call it unbiased or balanced illusion of transparency, I would think that, they would probably share my enthusiasm for the project. That's interesting. I think sorry for my hair. Again, right? I say sorry for my hair, as if I thought that you're looking at my hair at all, and you focus whether it's like this or that, whether it looks funny or not. You're not. You're probably not. But my intuition is that you constantly observe my hair as intensely as I do, sitting here and looking at myself for an hour and a half. So in most cases, we think that we read minds, but we read situations. So if you see a situation like this, even though you cannot see the faces, I think you might be very, very accurate in predicting what are these guys thinking about. Was she thinking about? Was he thinking about? Was she thinking about? Probably. Here, perhaps a little bit less than that. Because we know the social situation. There's a guy who's looking behind an attractive woman, although he's walking, holding their hands with another attractive woman. So we might know what this situation, what will be the most probable response in this situation. And we do it like this. A coach whose team has just won the world tournament. Or a coach whose best player has just been aggressively fouled. Which one is better? Both seem to fix, seem to fit in this situation. One better or worse? If you look at these pictures, which one seems more adequate to you? Fouled or won the tournament? Which seems more adequate to you? I will tell you which is the correct answer. Because I took this picture from a specific paper. So, which one is much more adequate to you? Is it a coach whose team has just won the world tournament, or is it a coach whose best player has just been aggressively fouled? Fouled? How do you pronounce this? Fouled. So, any idea? Is it who won the world tournament or aggressively fouled? What's your idea about this? In fact, as far as I remember, now I started to question my own memory, because I think that this guy was aggressively fouled. I'm not certain about this now. I remember when I last presented this, the group had a different opinion about this than in the original, and now I don't know whether I remember the true meaning or the interpretation of the group that I was talking with about this. But still, right? It might fix a special context, and we might interpret this related to the context, right? This might help a little bit, right? These pictures seem congruent now, and we can read, oh my God, he was aggressively fouled. Or like this, in this situation. When we see the congruence, he's just like, yeah, we made it, woo! It might be better if his palms were stretched, but still, it seems congruent. So another strategy how we can get to other people's mind is simulation and perspective taking. This is what we do in many cases. So we think again, and again, this shows how important it is. How do we perceive ourselves in our social lives? We already mentioned that the self seems to be a very good, very important aspect of our social functioning, and it determines how we perceive other people as well. Because one of the other strategy that we might employ in predicting what's on others people's mind is by simulating and taking perspective, right? So if we see a person in a specific situation, what would you feel like if you were in the space? By the way, would you like to go to the space? Would you like to be where she is and see our planet from this perspective, spend a couple of days or a couple of weeks perhaps there, or at least a couple of hours, might be easier to embrace, I think. So one of the ideas is that we simulate and take perspective. Is she feeling amazed or lonely? This might be. Or scared. Is she lonely? When you look at her, you probably in interpreting her mindset, you will be more likely to attribute to her your own simulation of what you would feel like in this situation. By the way, it seems also quite surprising that we are able to predict even such situations that are so distant from our everyday experience, that we can, as human species, we can simulate and we can imagine what would it be like if we were living in a space for a day or two. So the idea would be that we anchor in self, the first interpretation, and then we ask further questions. So perhaps she's a little bit different, how she feels. So we think, in such situation, I would feel wonderful. I would feel enthusiastic. I would imagine, right, next situations in which I will meet other people and they will ask me questions about this. I will be able to share this experience with others. It will be so inspiring. But then you can adjust this and you think, oh, how about she's an astronaut? Perhaps it's not her first visit there. Perhaps she spent 200 days in the space. So she's much more likely to feel adjusted and to feel not amazed, because this is what she's looking at every day. So even if it was the most beautiful picture or the most beautiful experience, you should habituate after 200 days to this. So, and she's probably 200 days away from her family. So the oxytocin levels in her body are dramatically low, unless she has a boyfriend or a girlfriend on the spaceship. So this might dramatically influence the way we'll interpret this. There is another interesting concept that might be mentioned here. A good question for the exam. So remember about egocentrism and protocentrism in mind reading. So some guys say, do we really, when we try to predict what other peoples are feeling, and we use this comparative strategy. So let's imagine how I would feel in this, what I would feel in this situation. So what would be a typical experience in this situation? Is it the best strategy, or do people employ a different strategy? And one of the authors says that it's not necessarily the best strategy, because the self, what's in the self? We don't know what's in the self. But some guys say, like this author, that the self is discrepancy, is the list of discrepancies. Interesting concept. And we already mentioned this earlier when we talked about memory and about coding objects in terms of compressing data and seeing how much they differ and how they differ from the main category. So it's a matter of categorization. So we have a person, and we define each person in terms of differences from an average person. And perhaps we also are define ourselves in terms of comparing ourselves to the prototype other, to the prototype person. So perhaps these are two perspectives. Some guys say we interpret everything based on what we are and how other things differ. And other guys say it's not the case. We have rather a prototype of a person, and even if we try to define ourselves, we define ourselves in relation to the prototype. So it's not egocentrism. So we do not compare when we try to read others people's mind. We do not try to think what I would feel or think in this situation, but what a typical person would feel in this situation, and then we adjust from this perspective. It seems like an academic distinction, but it's not. It's a very, very, very important one, because it shows the reference point. And in fact, we are social comparators. So we compare a lot. We compare all the time if we want to define ourselves. Are we smart? Are we tall? Are we physically attractive? Are we anything? We tend to compare ourselves towards a prototypical other person. So, a nice observation that it might be a little bit different. So if we take perspective taking, so mind reading, right? Mind reading is a very important concept because it also helps us to improve our social life, right? To improve our social life. It seems to be an important component of empathy. If we want to be more empathic, for instance, right? Imagine we have a very dramatic situation in the United States now. Not only there, but we have a very dramatic situation in the United States, and some people who are, especially people who are white, for instance, may find it difficult to understand what's going on there, right? What is this? Talking about white privilege, what is it about, right? What is it about? It's very difficult to imagine unless you imagine being another person, living in different circumstances, having different opportunities, having different comparison groups. So as long, right, as you take the perspective of another person, try walking in my shoes, like walking in other person's shoes. It may be very difficult to understand why these people take certain actions, such dramatic actions. So mind reading can be a strategic and very important part of improving relationships between individuals, but also between groups. So looking at the world through eyes of another person might be a very strong technique of reducing stereotypes. Focused on finding similarities, especially if you focus on finding similarities while comparing yourself against other persons, because in this case you again tend to compare. No question about this. Is this person? What is the person feeling? What's the person thinking? Do you have any idea? So, what's this person feeling, or what's this person thinking? Do you have any ideas? What are your ideas? Give me a guess, a first guess. What are your ideas here in this context? Is he angry or interested? Sorry for me hiding, obstructing this phrase. Is he angry or interested? Anna said he's concerned. He's concerned. Oh. So you might. I know that we are here on a psychology class, social psychology class, cognitive social psychology class. And we also discussed about the Black Lives Matter campaign in the United States. Interested. I don't know the correct answer, but still we know that in mind reading we also have a huge impact. We have a huge impact of stereotypes, ethnical stereotypes, for instance. So we are much more likely to misinterpret black faces as aggressive. So we see a face. So we face a face. So we see a face, and we think, and the face does not reveal anything. If it's just a neutral face, the fact that it's black makes us much more likely, white people makes us much more likely to interpret it as as experiencing aggressiveness. So our mind reading can be heavily influenced by group stereotypes. Also, if we interpret, because as we said earlier, that our mind reading is based on the interpretation of situation to a large extent. So imagine you bump against someone on a corridor, and you again try to interpret this person's behavior and mindset, and you very often say, "Hey, what are you doing? Right? What were you thinking? Right? What's on your mind?" we ask about this, and again, there's research that shows if it's a black person, we are much more likely to use the stereotype regarding this person. It was an intentional aggressive behavior. In general, right, we have faster recognition of happy faces among white and angry among black people, and the reverse effect for happy black and angry white faces. So it shows how much our mind reading is influenced by stereotypes. And again, even further, we can go even further and use stereotypes to rule out the possibility of experiencing certain mindsets, certain states, certain psychological states. For instance, we can, and it's a very important concept in psychology when we talk about stereotypes, when we talk about extremely negative stereotypes, they can be so much extreme that they can lead to the dehumanization. So in this case, when the stereotype leads to dehumanization, we see another person, we try to read this person's mind, and if we see that this person has some stereotypical group membership, we can have problems with assigning or attributing or ascribing to this person typically human mindsets like hope, guilt, higher emotions. Because joy, for instance, each animal can experience joy. Many animals are joyful. Dogs are joyful. Pigs are joyful. So there's no problem, or there can be said with ascribing some emotions, some mental states to people who, based on stereotypes, whom we dehumanize. And it can be also a little bit more subtle. The dehumanization can be more subtle, and when we have infrahumanization. So it's not the dehumanization. So we do not perceive some members of some groups as non-human in the symbolic term. In some cases, in a very literal way. In a very, very literal way. I think it's very, very delicate, a very delicate subject. If we talk about infrahumanization, how we perceive our group, how we perceive the other group. There are some people. I remember one very, very nasty comment in which a person said, during the Second World War, when guys from my group were dying, it was a mystical experience. It's something metaphysical. And when Poles died, it was a biological experience. It was a very impolite thing to say, and it reflected some kind of infrahumanization of certain groups. So if we talk about infrahumanization, we talk about the secondary, more subtle emotions like empathy, compassion. So it's a person that lacks something. It's a person that lacks certain characteristics. So then again, right, it shows how our mind reading can be influenced by some subtle processes. So at the end of this lecture, I would like to delve into something more. How to call it? To say something about the future, but I don't think it's about future. I think it's about the present case. I think present moment, because most of the things that we know about mind reading will be invalid soon, because our social life has been subjected to an intense and very, very deep transformation. And what I mean is the influence of technology on our mind, on our social processes. For instance, right, I would like to do a lot of mind reading with you, and usually when it's a lecture face to face, I can do it much better. It's much easier for me to get the feedback from you. For instance, are you entertained? Are you interested? Because these are two key aspects that I would like to achieve in my lectures, to provide you some interesting information and at the same time keep you invigorated. When we have a face-to-face contact, it's easier to do. I can read your minds much more efficiently. And here, what can I do, my guys? And this is the future. What we're doing here. I think there will be some face-to-face lectures in the future as well, but basically the education will go further or further into this electronical direction. We can be happy about it or not. So what you revealed, what I can read your minds in, is just like the starting part of this lecture. I'm watching the chat. You said hi, hello, hi. A very limited amount of information, right? So we need to know, as psychologists or cognitive scientists, we need to know increasingly more and much more about mind reading using data that's available in electronic media. So mind perception via technology. This is something we need to know to understand how people function and to help people function, right? Imagine, some of you are therapists. I know at least two persons here are therapists. And I think, I don't know, I must talk with my wife, who's a therapist as well, how much people are concerned when they talk about their problems, how often they talk about experiences, social experiences related to social media, or to contact, or to events that happened when they were that happened on Facebook or using their mobile phone. Anything that's related to technology. I think there will be an increasing number of some such experiences in people. We should be aware of this. This is some And in such situations, if we want to function effectively, we need to know what's on other people's mind, even though we lack the classical information. In fact, right, social media are about this. The first question that Facebook asks you about when you enter the website, and it asks you about this every day, if you visit every day, if you visit Facebook every day. If you visit Facebook every day, perhaps you should take some rest from time to time. But it says, what's on your mind, Łukasz? What's on your mind, Łukasz? And now I should be able to express what's on my mind using text, attaching some photo perhaps, tagging someone, using some emoji, using some emoticons, right? It's a completely different activity that we had in the past. So in the current state of the world, we have an increasing contribution of technology-mediated interpersonal communication to our whole social functioning, and it makes us much more. It makes our social life and social well-being that depends on our mind reading. It makes it much more complicated and much more related on our ability, skills, and willingness to use social media to understand other people better. I always, I like to give some. Sorry for, but I do. I like to give some negative comments from time to time on the Facebook. And my wife always asks me, why are you doing this? Do you think what this person will feel like? Do you think this person will like you better or less? But in some cases, when I see a complete nonsense on Facebook, I have a tendency to. I don't have the right tendency just to stop observing this person. I tend to comment and try to fix what the person is talking about. So we have new media, but we of course when you use technology, we lack traditional sources of information for mind reading. Anna leaves only negative comments on Facebook. So how many friends on Facebook you have? Like 10 or 20 or none? Do you follow some strangers? Do you know what people think and feel when they are reading these negative comments? So how many friends you have on Facebook? I think I have about 700 or 800. I don't know most of them very much, but I know some of them only from Facebook, and I had a tendency to think that I know them, which might be an illusion. So we lack traditional sources of information. Okay, someone writes something. So let's imagine a situation that we had in the past. Someone says something. You meet a person. You see their face. You see the situation, perhaps. You see the expression. You see some other signals in her or his body, and you can interpret it. So that explains it. Stop leaving negative comments, and you will immediately rise the number to hundreds or even thousands. Of course, it's not only quantity; it's quality that matters. Of course. So, by the way, are you aware that we will soon have 1,000 subscribers on the Nauka channel, which makes me very upset because I promised that once we reach 1,000, I will release a special. Release a special material. I have it almost ready, but almost is like 20% of work to do that takes 80% of time. But I'm really happy about this. We will finish the semester with 1,000 subscribers. That's wonderful. Unfortunately, it's not that much on Psychology Well. I think it's 34 persons now. We have one person from India, one person from China, I think. So that's great. And I think one person from the United States. So we have international viewership here. I don't care about the amount of friends on Facebook. Yeah. I'm just joking. So, availability of new sources and qualities of informations. This has changed also, and it influences our mind reading. In the past, if we talked about something, we want to communicate an event to a person, so the person knows what we're experiencing, what we're thinking. We used to retell a lot. Right? We used to retell. Do you know what happened? Do you know what happened? And now, if we use the phone, for instance, and now we just Look what happened. And we send the video, right? And we send the video. It's a completely different way of social communication. Completely different. For us and for the other people. Because it's objective, because it's concrete. Because there's no room for abstractness and no room for subjectiveness as well. There is some room for subjective interpretation, but the facts are the same. We have different patterns of communication. So it makes much more different to sample our mind, what's going on in my mind. So we have shorter and more frequent communication. It's a completely different thing to interpret. It's much more difficult, much more subjective to interpret a person who posted a sentence or two, right? What's on his mind? What's he talking about? Rather than a situation in which we have a long but rare communication, more rare but longer communication. We had different control of the signals we send, right? Like we send, like reviewing or editing posts. Do you look whether a post was edited? I do it. I like to do it when I see a post, and if it was edited, I think, why is that? Did I miss something? What the person tries to hide? Perhaps they said too much, right? There's an increase in non-native language communication, which is also a very difficult thing, because it's much more difficult to interpret our mindset if we communicate in non-native language. We miss the opportunity to know subtle tones, shades of a speech. We just miss it. We are much more focused on using communicative language with less emphasis on presenting the tones. So and we read other guys who express their words in their language. I have a friend from the United States who's a very intelligent person, and his vocabulary is so crazy. I cannot understand most of what he's talking about. Even though I think I'm quite skillful in English, I have really problems with this. Anna leaves comments not on profiles of my friends, but for example, on groups of people that believe that the earth is flat. Okay, I get it. So you like social conflict. Do you think that most of the people in the internet are pretending someone that they are not? To some extent, but I wouldn't be very much radical about this. We do pretend it's not only on the internet. I think if you say people are pretending on the internet, guys, that they are not. This is what we do in life generally, and it's not only on the internet. On the internet, it might be easier, so we are much more motivated to you. But in general, we have a social persona. We have a social perception. I'm not the kind of person that you think I am, for instance. I'm really not. I try to be more serious here, for instance, that I am more open-minded, for instance, that I am in my real life. So more intelligent that I am in my real life. So I think that they are pretending someone they are not on the internet, but it's not much more further. I don't know the research about this. It's just my intuition. I think it's not further that it is in our everyday life. And if they pretend to be someone better, I think it's good. If they pretend that they are better than they are in their real life. It might be bad if they pretend that they are worse than they are in their real life. And if they pretend they are better, so by pretending you mean being someone completely different. So for instance, I pretend that I am a low-educated black woman. Sorry for this association, but I just reversed my color of the skin, my gender, and my level of education. So it resulted in this example. Sorry for this. or Asian, okay? Asian, I might say Asian. Uh, Asian woman, for instance. So people are, so what you pretend is a part of your personality, right? But I'm not talking about faking personality, but being a little bit different than you are in your life. But I wouldn't be that radical. People have, in general, I think that many people over the internet are much more open than they are in their real life, because there's so much hate, for instance, in the internet. There's more hate in the internet than in our real life. So this shows that people show more what they really are when they are on the internet. They say what they think, and there is much more hate speech on the internet. So, and I don't think that people are faking this. That people are, they say, "Oh, I like those minorities, but I will just pretend that I hate them." I think it's the other way around. So no one's looking at me, so now I can be myself. So I will start to exercise my hate speech abilities, and I'll write everything I think, I feel about certain groups of people or individuals, for instance, also. Not necessarily other people, but my neighbors, for instance, or a friend, or my ex-girlfriend whom I don't like anymore, but I usually hide it when we are in social situations. But I have no problems with creating some fake profile and doing something malicious towards her. So I think it's a good starting point for a discussion, Anna, that people over the internet are pretending someone else. But if we discuss, what's your opinion about this? But if we discuss it in a greater detail, we can see that people in general tend to pretend being someone else. If they pretend being someone better, I think it's good for the social benefit. And even if they pretend, they're not pretending someone that's arbitrary and just picked up at random, so it is a part of their personality and of their social persona. And the last thing was something that I missed, but it's recorded. You can rewind it and see it. So you also have a different recipient of our communication. So it also changes the way we communicate and in which people need to read our minds, because we have mass communication of personal information. This is something that's never been like this before. So whenever something meaningful is happening in your life, I can post it right on my Facebook, and immediately 800 people have access to this if they want, because normally I think Facebook is not showing it to many people, but I will never know which person is going to look at it and try to understand my mind, to understand what's on my mind. Okay, guys? So this is a completely different situation. It's like something good happens and you go open the balcony in the past and you shout, "Hey guys, I made a delicious bread today. It tastes so delicious and I did it myself. I'm so proud of myself. I start baking bread every day." Right? This is what you can do all the time. "Oh, guys, my son looked really, really funny today. Really funny. He did this very funny flip and it's so nice." So you can do it all the time if you want. Social media, you never know. And the recipient is massive, right? If you're writing something, you never know who's going to read it, a close friend or further friend. Furthermore, the technology intervenes into your communication. It does not show your communicates to all other people. It makes a kind of bubble. So you receive certain amount of response from others, but it's not random. It's just from someone who are responsive, So from someone who are skillful in reading your mind. It might generate a problem, right? So guys who, when you experience something positive, they like it. If you experience something negative, they said it. I mean, they click said. Or when you write something that you are angry about, they click anger. So it might make you much more likely to contact with people who are good in reading your mind. So people who are reading your mindset, people who are, for some reason, people who are able to accurately, not accurately, rather accurate, more accurately than the average, to interpret your mindsets or to assume a certain mindset. So this is it goes even further. It goes even further. How much mind reading is important? I have it in my email writing software. Look how it changes the whole world of mind reading. So imagine I write, "I love you. You are the most wonderful person." One thing is that Google tells me how I should finish a sentence, which is crazy. So I say, "The most wonderful person." I might write in my class, for instance, but it suggests "right in the world." So it greatly influences our social relationships. And now there's the question. For instance, imagine that I'm good at mind reading, or I'm bad at mind reading. I have a lousy ability to read minds, to predict how my communication will impact other people. In past, it might be a problem. Nowadays, it's not. I have a software. I don't ask Grammarly. It's called Grammarly. It's free, so I recommend it to you. I didn't ask for this, but it automatically does that. So it corrects my English vocabulary if I make any grammatical mistake. But it also says what's the tone of this, right? So if someone reads this, what kind of mindset this person is likely to have based on this short communication? Because if it's only text, it's a short communication. The person cannot see my situation, how I'm writing this, why now, what cost me writing this, am I lying in a bed, for instance, or am I in a shop, or anything else? No situation which might help me to interpret it. No facial expression, no nothing, only just this simple text. And it says, okay, it expires, admiring. Martina, if you are here, can you see the emoji? You seem to like this emoji as well. So it's admiring, it's friendly, it's even optimistic, right? If I write, "I'm sorry to inform you that I'm no longer your boyfriend. Moreover, I think that I'm not your friend anymore either." How do you think? What kind of mindset a person has who's writing this? It might be difficult, but machine learning, because this is made by machine learning is very skillful at interpreting this. It says it's empathic, it's formal. How accurate, and how greatly it changes the way we formulate our communication. We control our communication, our social communication. That's crazy. We need to understand it even more and more. So we have new cues, all sorts of new cues that were not available in the previous forms of communication. For instance, research shows that people overestimate the amount of attitude they communicate in their emails. And it can generate a serious problem. For instance, if you are writing something being sarcastic or funny, people tend not to get it. So if you are talking this, it's very easy to communicate whether you are sarcastic or funny, whether you really mean it, or you say it only as a joke. And people think that immediately, if I start typing, I can be equally sarcastic or funny and people will get it. They will not. It's a problem. It's a huge problem. You should be aware of this. Even some very, very subtle cues are worth mentioning. For instance, if you write something, as here on these smartphones, as you can see, it doesn't look like an old study. It was published in 2015, so probably data were collected probably in 2012 or 13. There was a research that showed that if you ask someone about something, for instance, I got tickets, I would like you to come, would you like to go? So if you put a full stop, right? If you put a full stop at the end of the sentence, you lose sincerity. So you lose sincerity. And it's not the case in written texts. If someone leaves you for instance, you cannot communicate with electronic media, and you just communicate with papers, with short paper clips. And someone asks you the same question using paper note, and you answer using a paper note, and you put the full stop at the end of the sentence. It does not matter. But for the electronic communication, it does greatly. It shouldn't be too much. It shouldn't be too much elaborate. No interpunction, no full stops. It makes you feel more sincere. Using emoji of objects also, for instance. Did you use any? By the way, did you use any? You only used emoji. So Julia used the one of the most popular emoji, the face that's smiling and that's laughing with and crying at the same time. I think it was I think it was the most popular emoji of 2019, as far as I remember, on Facebook. So we habituated to the normal smiley that reflected our. But for instance, if people use emoji of objects, right? Because this is a different thing. We can use emoji of happy faces, sad faces, but we also use emoji of objects. It immediately makes the recipient interpret that we are feeling joyful at this moment. So look how it influences our social life. So in this moment, I will write you a short note, without a full stop at the end, and I will put a lot of emoji with objects to thank you for your participation in this series of lectures. Oh my God, so difficult to imagine that we finally arrived at this moment in our conversations here. But that's the case. So thank you all, for all of you who are watching. Thank you for being at the final moment of the lecture. And for those of you who will watch it later, I would like to thank you for your contribution. Percentage-wise, you were quite active here. So thank you for your activity. Thank you for your involvement in this lecture. This is the end, but of course, it's just at the end of the lecture, and I hope it's the beginning of your getting more familiar with cognitive science, with cognitive social psychology science, and with psychology in general, right? You're a cognitive scientist. I think, from my perspective, that cognitive science is just psychology, but I know that you don't necessarily share this view, but for me, this is what psychology should be also about. So thank you for your... Thank you. So my English dramatically dropped at the last moment. Thank you. So thank you for your kind words. And please have a nice the end of the day. Have a nice evening, and remember to to prepare to the exam so that it is a positive experience for you and not an adverse event. So, good luck with your preparations. I'm keeping my finger crossed. I'm not an unkind person. So I will make all I will take all my efforts to make this exam just and fair for you, so that those of you who prepared get good grades, and those of you who did not prepare get bad grades. so come on, material about emoji. What do you mean with the material about emoji, Carolina? I don't know what you're talking about right now at the end of this lecture. Thank you for all of these enjoyable lectures. Thank you. So, see you guys in the future, hopefully. Oh, but we were lucky that we actually met personally. We have met personally. We saw each other personally. Although I really don't remember all of you, I think. So I think that if I saw you on the corridor, when I will saw you on the corridor, I will have problems with knowing that it's you. So if we happen after the COVID-19 frenzy, if we happen to meet on the corridor, you just can say, "Hi, I'm from Psychology Well. I'm Anna Rzepecka." So remember, or I'm Julia. Could you give us a list of issues for exam? A list of issues? There's no list of issues. Everything that I presented here, what kind of list of issues you would like to get? Just look at the beginning of each lecture. This is the list of your issues. You can listen to me and Magda talking about emoji. Haha. Lista zagadnień is on the syllabus. That's very general. So you just better go through the list of lectures and you'll have it. You can listen to me and Magda talking about emoji. Where I can listen to you? Did you link it here? Because I cannot see any link. So you have any material where you talk about emoji? Just put it here in the chat so I can watch you and Julia, or I can't. Do you mean that you have some recorded material about this? So if you have something, just post it. So will you post it? Because if not, I will end the stream. So send it to me over electronic media or over an email. So thank you.